on leader performance and leader efficacy. Right? So other impacts that can come into play have to do not with the leader themselves, but also with the followers, right? It's the same thing. The internal knowledge, experience, education, personality, etc. But then also, how mature they are. What are their expectations of the leader? Do they share the same goals and values? We'll talk about a little bit later things like diversity when it comes to leadership and teams. And you've probably learned this in your organizational behavior class. When you have a deep level diversity, like somebody who is different fundamentally on a deep level, political party is a great example. It's very difficult, very, very difficult to find consensus, to be motivated, to be excited to work together, and to have a successful output. And so it's important to get people who share that deep level values and don't have a lot of diversity when it comes to deep level. So size matters when it comes to leaders. So, like, for example, we were talking about team size, right? There's an ideal size of followers, and in different situations, that size is different. I have a rule that I follow, and it's the pizza rule. So my ideal follower or subordinate size is 2 pizzas. And I always say, if I cannot feed this team on 2 pizzas, then it's too big of a team, right? I made too large of a team. We have to break it down into smaller sub teams. So, did you guys ever do a Mobius strip in school? See, I think I made one here. So a Mobius strip is, you probably might have done it in your math classes. Mobius strip, here, let me change my background here so I can show you. Mobius strip is a strip of paper with one side, right? So a piece of paper that has only one side to it, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. And if you were to take your finger and you were to, here, let me go ahead and stop my video here. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm here, I promise you. I'm just getting rid of my background so I can show you this. Okay, so yeah, so Mobius strip is a piece of paper with one side. I have lead on the front of the Mobius strip, follow on the back of the Mobius strip, and so a Mobius strip, if you were to take this, and it's a circle right now, right? So it has 2 sides. It has a front side and the back side. But if you were to take and flip just one side of the equation right there, and staple it, not tape. Now you have a piece of paper with one side. One side. So lead leads to follow. And if you were to run your finger along this, you would go from one side to the next, to the next, to the next, and it's just one side. Like, that's so strange. How can something with 2 sides have one side? That's like leadership. Right? That's like leadership. So here, let's go ahead and share the screen again. When you have an effective team, everyone is working together on the same side of the Mobius strip. Right? Leaders go into followers, go into leaders, et cetera, et cetera. And every leader is also, every good leader is also a follower, and a good follower. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit more about the followers. And this is one of those things that you don't hear a lot about, and or as much as you hear about leaders. People don't talk about, you don't do follower workshops or, take follower classes, even though you take leadership classes, and it's just as important. And it's a shame, I think. So I think that it's important to focus on it as well. And really the whole function of leader follower and situation has changed. And people are starting to understand the importance of this dynamic relationship. Uh, Especially as we start to see more and more organizations with more egalitarian work structures. You know what I mean by egalitarian, like egalite, right? Equal, rather than hierarchical or like a pyramid where the power is at the top and goes down. Organizations today, people don't like, in the United States primarily, don't like the power being so centralized at the top of an organization and flowing downward. They like egalitarian work structures. And so with that egalitarian work structure, it's changed the sort of relationship of our followers. We also are asking people to do so much more with so much less. And so a follower is not, or should not be treated just like a follower or a subordinate. We expect people at every single level in an organization to have power and to make decisions. In my organizations, I expect the very lowest level employee, the intern who's not even getting paid yet, who has just maybe an hour's worth of experience, they have leadership responsibilities. They have the authority to make decisions and to even make changes in the organization. And that's just it's the nature of work nowadays. Things have changed, and we realize that if we want to be responsive and agile, we need our employees to have accountability and to be able to influence an organization. And so people, even people who are labeled as followers or entry level employees, they need to be skilled at influencing upwards, at getting people to do what they want them to do from a very, very early level. All of the employees that I have right now at the rec, the longest employee's been there less than a year, and they have decision making, decision making capabilities. They have. I was just talking with one of the employees. She's been there for just a few months, and she has a budget of over $800,000 that she has to manage, and so you see that more in organizations that are more progressive and more agile. So situation is also important to pay attention to, the context, how they interact. And like I said before, this is the most ambiguous of all of the other of the different components of the relationship. It's also, though, even though it's ambiguous, it's still important to pay attention to, in what's the context? What's the context, and how does that play a role on this relationship? So we're going to move into women now as leaders, and we're going to talk a little bit about women and minorities in leadership positions. But I just wanted to kind of, before we transition into that, I wanted to show you what managers are saying. This is from a study that was done by the Pew Research Group about, it was 3 or 4 years ago. And they asked managers, executives at organizations, why don't women have these top priority roles? Why aren't they more women in executive leadership roles? And this is what they said. They said women are held to higher standards than men. That's number one reason why they think women haven't moved up in their company, right? Or in general, right? They say that maybe their company's not ready to hire or elect women leaders, which I think is just sad. 43% in this day and age. It's awful. Family responsibilities then come in after that. Women don't have sufficient connections. Party support. This is because we also look at politics as another question in there. But this one, women are not tough enough. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Some of the toughest human beings I know are women. And look at this one. Women don't make as good of managers. Ugh, are you kidding me? Oh, so frustrating to hear these kind of things. Because they're just not true. They're just not true. And we'll look at this a little bit more depth right now. I didn't mean to end this video on a negative note, but actually, let's do this. Let's end the video back on where we started, our quiz. So all of these 1 through 10, true, false, are false. Every single one of these are false. So, except for number 9. Number 9 is actually true. Number 9 is true. But, and maybe now that I say that, it's like, oh yeah, of course they are. I knew that beforehand. But I think it just underscores that oftentimes it's not common sense, right? Some of it is, some of it isn't. It's important though to know which is and which isn't, and not rely too much on just our own understanding, but really let's look at the data and find out how can we best affect a change. How can we keep people motivated? How can we keep them working hard? How can we keep them happy in the company? And that's how we can with very little money and effort have a big impact on our companies and our world. So cool. All right, we have one more video in the leadership section, but I'll be back to finish that off here in a little bit.